Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Feed and Grain podcast, and thank you for listening. My name is Stephen Kilger, managing editor of Feed and Grain, and your host today. We have a slightly different kind of show for you today. This recording is actually one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. I'm talking with Doug McDowall, owner of Soulcraft Construction, a company out of Meridian, Idaho, about a unique malting facility they built for Montana Craft Malt. Unfortunately, when we wrote the article about Montana Craft Malt, a criminally small amount of this interview made it into the article I wrote. So I figured it would be a great time to dust this interview off and dive back into one of the most interesting facilities I've ever had the privilege of covering. Before we get into that conversation, though, if you're listening to this in a podcast app, subscribe and leave a review if you're able. If you're listening to this online, please make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter, Industry Watch, for the latest episodes. And thank you again for listening. On to my conversation with Doug.
To start, why don't you tell me a little more about the company?
I guess Soulcraft, I've been dealing in the feed, seed, and fertilizer industry for 36 years now. And Soulcraft's been around since March 3rd of 2017. But I had another company previously that been in this business for quite some time. I grew up farming and ranching, so I had a good background on what we do here. And I kind of fell in love with the grain handling and processing facilities. So Soulcraft, basically, that's what it was designed as, was something we could go in and service the Northwest in the feed, seed, and fertilizer industry. We also have an equipment sales division, which we handle a lot of cheap industries. And, everybody that pretty well got thrown on the site there. But, Chief's been very, very good to me over the years. And they're a good company to work with. And we've also got a machine shop, which is a roll corrugating shop that we handle recorrugating and sales of new feed rolls and also into the flour industry. We deal quite a bit across the western U.S. We're looking to get into the Midwest and the eastern portion of the U.S. as far as all of our roll corrugating facilities and stuff. So we're diversified, but we're still pretty well tied up in the ag industry.
Very cool. So why don't you go into how you got connected with Montana Craft Malting and go over the job with me?
Okay. Well, to start off with, Chief Industries was kind of involved in the preliminary part of this. The engineering firm, Chief didn't, Montana Craft, Ron Hewland, had a engineering firm out of Canada design the first go-round. It came in, Chief contacted me, asked me if I was, able to handle this. And I told him, yes, I'd be very interested in it. And so we went through and bid it the way that they had it designed originally. And they weren't very versed at grain handling. It came in extremely high. And so with Chief's blessing, I reached back out to Ron and let him know there's other ways to do this. I really like looking and working outside the box. If we do the same thing that everybody in this industry does day in and day out, we're going to get the same result. So I like looking outside the box and still achieve the end goal, but be able to do it a little different than everybody else. And so that's kind of what has made us successful, is by doing those things. So I had reached out to Ron and asked him if I could present a different way of doing this that would save him a lot of money. And obviously he was very open. So with utilizing Chief Industries for their elevators and towers, catwalks, and superstructures, we went through and did that. But I also introduced Meridian Bends, backhoe manufacturing, because we had to set it up on basically the same lines as a seed facility so that, we could have total clean out. There was no contamination. There was no cross-contamination. They were getting exactly what they were putting in was coming out the other end. So that's why I designed it to look more like a seed facility, because that's what we had to achieve. After I'd met with Ron and everything on that, he was very open to it. And he introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Jason Myers. Super good guy. He's been with ADM, everything else. And him and I basically worked together and him and I were liaisons to Ron. And so we basically designed on the fly all of that system, that grain handling system, up to the malt plant. And then we took it from the kiln and brought it out from there. But for the most part, Ron he had enough vision and understanding in the grain industry that he understood that what we were proposing would definitely fit his budget and it would get him in there. We had to work on some pretty tight budget constraints and that's how it is. Nobody gets an open checkbook on these things. But I tried to give them the very best we could with that budget in mind. I didn't ever know what that number was. If I was a little high, Ron would let me know that, hey, or Jason, either one would let me know we got to chop this much out. So there's a lot of stuff. If you went in and really critiqued that facility, it may not be up to par as far as what today's standards are. There's things that we can add in as they grow and they move because we had to get it off the ground. And that's what we ended up doing.
Well, that's part of the thing is we really want to start focusing on, unique, not as large. Not everyone can spend $30 million on a new feed mill or whatever. Our industry has room for all levels of players. So,
and that's, it's not that we can't design, that $30 million facility, but for the most part, we want to give them, the best bang for their buck. I mean, the first design would have been awesome, but it wasn't very logical. So that's where, we got to use some logic in this thing to be able to get what they want and get a long-term facility, something that's easily maintained. And that's, kind of what we like looking into is being able to maintain these because that's a part of our business that we do. But I don't want to give them something that they have to work on every day. I want to have a little bit of industrial strength to it.
Yeah, excellent. So they told me a little bit. You guys seem to have some trouble during construction, and it happens to every project. But I hear you guys got hit with some weather and all kinds of issues. So you mind going through the construction process with me?
Yeah, no, it really wasn't that bad. On our part of it.
Yeah.
We did get into it when we started out. That year we got in there, we got the tank set. But yeah, winter in Butte can be a little interesting. I've dealt with winters like that before, but it does. It brings different aspects to your project. It slows it up a little bit. But all in all, we were ahead of the 8 ball going into the deal. Obviously, when Ron died, things really shifted gears and we had to readjust. And then by the time we got back in, then we ended up being, on the same timeline as everybody else at that point. But basically, they never did wait on us for any of that project, basically. But as far as, troubles and stuff like that, most of it's going to be weather, timing with other portions of that, like the malting building itself, the items in the malting building, basically there was a lot of that they had issues with coming from China. And, there were just different aspects that we had to really throttle back and then jump back into. But I think that they did a very good job of, handling all of that, working through it. We was able to provide through Chief the superstructures that they needed inside that building that China didn't provide. And so Chief jumped in. We handled putting all that in there for him. And, it was kind of a retrofit, but it worked. I mean, he was able to make it work for him. And that's really where the timeline came in there, was trying to get something designed to fit what they had to have in there because of the vessels and everything that was already designed. We had to do a reverse engineering to get back in there on that side of it. So there was some, trying moments on that portion of it. But as far as the rest of the grain handling, it was pretty day to day.
let's get into weeds. Let's get into those nitty gritty details about. Normally, how I like to go as I write an article is from when grain comes in till the final product comes out. So there's that big chunk in the middle that's kind of their side of it. It's malting tanks and all that stuff that I had to learn about malting because I had no idea how any of it worked. They get most of their grain from trucks. So what happens when a truck kind of pulls in?
Basically what we did, again, we set this thing up on a seed facility basis. What we did is they didn't want any receiving pits. And so for a temporary setup, we used the backhoe pit stops. It's an above ground drive over belt conveyor. We can unload belly dumps or end dump trucks. And so when it comes in, it comes through the receiving leg into the 14 bin holding structure or the dirty bins. We will take that product from there and run back up the receiving leg across the conveyor that goes into the malt building. The malting process takes place at that point. We pick it back up at the kiln. We take it from the kiln, and then it's already cooling down. It's pretty cool. We'll take it back across, run it through our clipper deplumers, and then we run it through a Kais aspirator to remove all the rootlets and everything. And then from there, it goes up into one of the 24 bin storage units, which it will sit there up to, a month or so. And then we can pull it back out, run it over to one of our surge bins for the bagging. We can either tote. We've got a Gem International system in there, which we can fill totes, we can bag, or we can run it out into a bulk truck. Okay. So everything is weighed out and, gone through there. There's a few processes there that we could add in, and we've talked about adding. But for the startup, it is what it is. It was a dollar number. Yeah. So basically, that is the system in a nutshell. What we've got up on top of these things, up on top of the bins and everything, is with the backhoe conveyors being piggybacked, it allows me to, handle that and be able to get that consistency with no cross-contamination and everything else. We can go from bin to bin and isolate it. If things changed, I would probably, instead of doing that, that's kind of a little bit of a costly way to do it, but it was as per Ron's request that we do it as a seed house. So if I was to go back in and redo it, it would have chief conveyors, a chain conveyor up there, because they do a better job of handling product, and it's going to last a lot longer. But that's why I didn't do a chief conveyor and I did the backhoes, because it was the most cost effective way in order to do that for us.
So each bin gets completely cleaned out, right?
Yes.
Are they all gravity fed then, or how does?
Yeah, all the bins. What we do is when we come out of the receiver, it'll run through the backhoe conveyors up on top, fill the bin. When it comes out of the bin, then we hit some backhoe conveyors coming off the bottom that is regulated with a actuator gate at the bottom, to where the product will run back through, and whether we're running into the bagging system or if we're running into the malting system, all the bins run exactly the same way. And so it's basically a pretty simple design, and a lot of the parts are, you can use any of the backhoe components on any of them. They're all the same size. Likewise with the elevators and everything else. We try to keep it to where it was user friendly or maintenance friendly, where you didn't have to house a ton of parts. You could have a few that would fit anywhere.
Well, those are all the questions I have for you. You think anything else you think I should know?
Like I say, just, basically making sure that, Chief Industries, Meridian, Backhoe, all these guys get recognized because they played a huge part in it. They provided top quality equipment for something that turned out very well. Yeah.
We will make sure to do that. We have good relations with all those companies, and we want to make sure that, they're getting the recognition they deserve.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, all I do is put the parts together and dream up some wild, crazy way to do it. But, you know, they do all play a huge part in this, and I'm very thankful to all of them.
Well, I am going to let you go then. You have yourself a great rest of the week. Good weekend.
I will. You do the same, sir, and I appreciate your time. And like I say, if there's anything you need from me, please let me know.
All right. I will talk to you soon, John.
All righty. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. Bye.